Okay, welcome to D&M Reptiles. My name is Doug Beasley, but my friends call me the Toilet Paper King. Anyway, so this is a Halmahera, produced by Rodney Bolich. I think the first thing that jumps out at you when looking at this locale is how much darker he is. They are quite dark. Another thing to look at too is their belly. They got a lot more black on their belly than like a mainland or a Kalatoa. This animal is, I believe, just a year old. I guess it could be 2 years old. It wasn't a hatchling when we got it, right?
I think it was.
Anyways, so this animal is over a year old. The Halmaheras have a lot of yellows and reds. I think what stands out the most is the dark color and the belly. There's a lot of black in the belly. This is a reticulated python. Currently, the powers that be don't recognize this animal as a dwarf or super dwarf, and I think that's kind of what we want to talk about today. The question is why? Well, I don't know. So the latest phylogenetic research has yielded astonishing results where the kinship of the reticulated python and the reticulated pythons is actually closer to the Australasian python than the other true pythons. Therefore, Sanka batik and Sanka timor, Sanka batik is the Halmahera reticulated python, were included in a new genus, namely the Broghammerus. In 2013-2014, scientists conducted DNA studies again until finally the two snakes were included in a new genus again, namely Meliopython. Genus Meliopython, species Meliopython reticulatus, Schneider, 1801. So the Halmahera reticulated python is classified as scientific name as Meliopython reticulatus. They are quite different, at least in pattern and color. And then that brings us into our point of the day, which is how come this is not called a dwarf? At minimum, a dwarf. We have the Coyote, what are the dwarfs?
Coyote, Kalatoa, Karampa, Tombolongan, Solear, Jampea, and Kalatoa. The super dwarfs are Kalatoa and Karampa, right? Arguably Madu.
And Madu. So according to Reach Out Reptiles, we'll reference his poster, just so that you guys can kind of see. We have Solear, Jampea, Coyote, Tombolongan. 9 to 13 foot on the Solear, 8 to 12 foot on Jampea, 7 to 11 foot on Coyote, 6 to 10 foot on Tombolongan. So those are widely accepted as the dwarfs of reticulated pythons. So that brings us to our main point, the Halmahera. Or the scientific name Meliopython reticulatus. Obviously, you can see the difference in color from a mainland, or even from the other dwarf species, the other dwarf snakes locale. So Halmahera has a 6,865 square mile, and its name actually means motherland. It's very warm and humid and rainy all year round. 86 degrees Fahrenheit, I believe, is its average temperature. About 40 inches of rain yearly. It's only dry 92 days of the year with an average humidity of 73% humidity. So, I mean, basically the same as all the other retic locales. This is the only pure Halma clutch ever produced in the United States. These are one of the rarest locales in the U.S. They are medium-sized retic is what people call it. As of March 2020, there has been no outcrossing of this locality. So, needless to say, this is a very rare locality of retic. Now, some other people want to talk about the rarity of their reticulated pythons, their dwarfs or their super dwarfs. But because nobody calls this a dwarf, they don't include the Halmaheras. They do the same thing with ternate. We'll make another video on ternate. But it's basically the same. This animal is a small retic in my opinion. So for males, 2.5 meters, and females between 3.1 meters. So 3 meters, 10 foot for the females, under 10 foot for the males. I also read and tried to search that there has never been a Halmahera reticulated python wild caught. There has never been one caught over 10 foot tall. 10 foot tall. Over 10 foot long. So that tells me that this is actually a smaller of the retics. Just like it showing you in that poster, that's right along the lines of the Kiowati and Tombolongan. Maybe even smaller on average. So I would just like to know why we can't call these dwarfs. Who gets to decide that? Do we need to sign a petition? I think that we should be able to call these dwarfs, if not super dwarfs, even in some circumstance. But at minimum, dwarf. I mean, this is a small to medium-sized reticulated python. It's absolutely smaller than any of the mainland localities. So when people say, "Oh, that's a mainland locality," I think that's a crock of crap. It never had a wild caught over 10 foot. That's not a giant retic. That's a small retic. So anyways, beautiful animal. Just here, we can get them some good lighting. Great colors. See the pattern. Kind of got some similarities to, you know, all of the dwarf and super dwarf lines, except for the color. Definitely the yellows and the reds. And the blacks are extremely black. Let's see if I got some notes here. I was trying to make sure I could talk about everything that we wanted to touch on. While I just revel in the beauty of this animal. You know, I may be biased, because I think that we have an opportunity with this locale to really do some awesome stuff. It's very unique in its natural color and pattern, that putting this into some of the morphs, and we're going to be kicking some ass. Thanks for watching D&M Reptiles. I hope that you will consider us the powers that be now, and because I have a Halmahera and I'm going to breed Halmaheras into the other locales, that this should be called a dwarf. And I'm going to call it a dwarf. I don't care who says what or whatever. If you think that this should be called a dwarf, hit the like button, thumbs up, and if you don't think so, go ahead and comment why down below. But just comment anyways. It helps us, like, people see our fucking videos. And as you can tell, it's pretty difficult to get people to want to watch this. Like, share, comment, subscribe. This is a Halmahera reticulated python. It is a dwarf.